but at least she comes across here as professional in what she's saying, and she seems to think a deal is coming. And let's be real, regardless of how tough Collier wants to talk, we're not going to cave in. Well, if you want to play basketball in the WNBA, you're going to have to, because they're going to shut the league down if you don't. They're not giving you 30% revenue or whatever in the hell that ridiculousness is.
Somewhere in a dimly lit gym wrapped in wildly ambitious branding, a bold experiment is unfolding. People are being confidently assured they're witnessing a cultural revolution, even though no one has felt the urge to put down the remote. The plan was deceptively simple. Take the Caitlin Clark effect, copy it, paste it onto Paige Bueckers, and sit back as the ratings supposedly skyrocket. What actually happened is something far stranger, unintentionally funnier, and absolutely impossible to look away from. Just wait for it.
Unrivaled could be seeing its final days as Paige Bueckers and gang could not save the viewership from tanking. What does this mean for the WNBA when they make their return back to TV? There has been news to come out about Unrivaled viewership being down nearly 70% from last year. Now, I'm going to tell y'all why this is bad. Because last year, it wasn't like they was cracking hella views to begin with. They wasn't even getting hella views at all last year. Now, this year, their views is down by nearly 70%.
The league is once again planted in the middle of a storm of its own making, smiling into the camera and insisting the weather is beautiful, while the rain, apparently, is just part of the immersive experience.
And on top of that, you're sitting in front of everybody, in front of all these fans, and saying, we don't want raises. They're at 9 times what, by the end of the next CBA, it would literally be a 9 times salary increase. You're telling people you don't want that. You got to be kidding me, right? It's not a good look. After complaining about, because for years, all we heard about was money. So after years of complaining about money, now it's not about money anymore. You want it to be about revenue.
Somewhere between boardrooms, half-empty arenas, and aggressively optimistic press releases, a comforting idea has taken hold. That every problem can be solved by simply declaring a new superstar into existence and trusting the audience to politely play along.
Season, towards the end of the season, we start seeing the WNBA kind of fudge the numbers, taking into account group party watch party viewerships, counting those into, effect like bars and stuff like that. Now, with that being said, that metric kind of lied about the numbers allegedly being what they was to close out the WNBA season. Now we're getting data from the Unrivaled pretty much claiming that their numbers
this time the experiment is an attempt to bottle the lightning that came with Caitlin Clark, slap a new label on it, and sell it as Paige Bueckers, only without the inconvenient detail of millions of people actually showing up to watch.
So I got to talk about Paige Bueckers. And no, I'm not talking about Paige Bueckers because people are talking about Candace Parker talking about Paige Bueckers. I was really harping on Paige Bueckers Monday night during Unrivaled, her debut with Unrivaled, her team, what are they called again? The Breeze. It's a new team. The Breeze taking on the Phantom. I didn't realize how much of a ball hog Paige Bueckers is.
The strategy sounds simple in theory and completely baffling in execution. At no point does the plan seem to include the radical notion of letting interest grow organically, because that would require patience, humility, and the uncomfortable acceptance that not every star shines the same way. Meanwhile, labor negotiations loom in the background like an unresolved group project no one prepared for, while the league's public messaging has drifted into a strange blend of forced optimism and low-grade panic. One side insists everything is nearly resolved, that progress is quietly happening, and that professionalism will eventually save the day. The other appears far more invested in broadcasting every frustration in public, making sure any potential goodwill evaporates before it ever has a chance to form. Caught in the middle is a league trying desperately to sell hope while still negotiating the basic mechanics of its own survival.
I know Caitlin, of course, we go way back, Midwestern. We had a lot of battles in AAU and stuff like that. We played together on Team USA. I think she's just a competitor. She wants to win. She has just intangibles of the game. She knows how to play, great IQ. But I think the biggest thing about her, she competes, and she's just a winner. She wants to win at all costs. And so I know going into that, it'll be a great matchup. But I'm excited. It's great for the game.
Professionalism has become the new buzzword, largely because it's far easier to say than to practice. Some players speak as if they understand that public negotiations require restraint, careful wording, and the basic awareness that emotions rarely close deals. Others seem determined to turn every disagreement into a public spectacle, as though venting online somehow strengthens their bargaining position. The result is a negotiation process that feels less like serious business and more like a reality show subplot nobody asked to follow. Amid the chaos, the idea that players deeply invested in a rival league should also help shape collective bargaining decisions raises eyebrows that were already permanently raised. Conflicts of interest are waved away with vague assurances about shared goals and equity, as if simply saying the words makes the problem disappear. It's a fascinating exercise in logic, the suggestion that ownership, leadership, and labor can all occupy the same space without friction, so long as everyone agrees not to acknowledge the obvious tension. Yet none of this would matter nearly as much if the product itself demanded attention. Instead, attention is being insisted upon rather than earned. The new league, proudly marketed as innovative and culture-forward, still looks and feels like an experiment searching for a reason to exist.
A ball hog. And we got into it in the chat, and I know there's some Paige Bueckers loyalists out there who are gonna say, not you piling on Paige Bueckers, what do you mean she's a ball? She's a ball hog. She was playing 1-on-3 in that game on Monday night. So yes, I know she scored 24 points. I expect her to score 24 points because she didn't want to pass the ball. Now, you might say, well, Adrian, she had 6 assists.
The games are packaged as revolutionary. The atmosphere is labeled electric. The players are introduced as icons. And yet viewers quietly wonder why the screen looks dimmer than their living room and why the action feels closer to an extended scrimmage than must-watch entertainment. Into this setting steps Paige Bueckers, not as a player allowed to grow naturally into her professional identity, but as a symbol burdened with carrying the full weight of a league's ambitions. She isn't just presented as talented, but as transformative, as if her mere presence should shift the gravitational pull of women's basketball itself. Caitlin Clark didn't become a phenomenon because executives announced her arrival. She became one because fans responded organically to her style, her moments, and her ability to generate excitement that translated seamlessly to television. Trying to recreate that effect through repetition and insistence fundamentally misunderstands what made it special in the first place.
So the first set of Unrivaled ratings are in, and it's been kind of grim. And by kind of grim, I mean really, really grim. If you are Unrivaled, this is, if these are your ratings every single week on True TV, it's not the biggest disaster in the world, because by the looks of things, these True TV ratings were similar enough to what they were a year ago. Similar enough to what they were a year ago.
The league's leadership talks about culture as if it's a replacement for competition, as though fans tune in to admire vibes more than baskets. Culture is positioned as the primary selling point, which is a curious strategy when the actual basketball often feels secondary. The underlying assumption seems to be that viewers should be deeply invested in identity, messaging, and symbolism, even if they can't recall team names or final scores the next day. Games are promoted with language that suggests historic importance, yet they pass with barely a ripple in the broader sports conversation. A high-scoring night is celebrated internally as proof the vision is working, while the outside audience remains largely unaware it even occurred. These tactics aren't new, and neither is the predictable skepticism they generate among anyone paying attention. Announcing percentage increases without context or baseline numbers may not be transparency, but it is very much on brand.
Unrivaled numbers going around on the internet, and it doesn't look good at all. But I do want to tell you guys that this isn't the final number. Right? This is just, I believe, a certain age group. I think it's like 18 to 49, and they didn't necessarily count everybody who was watching on HBO Max, all that good stuff. I think it will finish around 200,000, 190,000 like it did last year. I don't think it'll be an increase like that, although they did add a good amount of new players.
There's an almost poetic confidence in proposing partnerships with established leagues while still struggling to prove independent viability. Invitations are extended as if leverage already exists, as if the offer is a gift rather than a request. It's optimism edging into fantasy, driven by the belief that alignment alone can fix structural problems that remain unresolved. Meanwhile, arenas stay modest, attendance remains selective, and the largest crowds still arrive with a familiar team from Indiana. This isn't an indictment of any player's talent, but a critique of the expectations placed upon her. Stars can't manufacture interest in a vacuum, and no amount of branding can replace the unpredictable alchemy that forms between a player and an audience.